Okay, it's time for a record haul. I haven't done one of these in a while, so this is pretty much everything from Christmas till now. I actually have an unboxing video, which I don't know when I'm going to put it up. It might already be up, it might not already be up. That's of the Genesis BBC Live session stuff. So, yeah. Um, anyway, got a whole bunch here. I'm going to lift them all up for the thumbnail for the video. Yeah! First up, I got one for Christmas that was the reissue of Animals. This is their 2018 remix. Great stuff. Great stuff. Love what they did with it. Next up, we have a record that I got mainly because I'm a Genesis addict. Anytime there's a Genesis thing out on the market, I have to pick it up because they're my favorite band. And that is the Many Faces of Genesis. I don't think this is actually an official release from the band, which kind of makes sense. It kind of follows suit very similarly to the archive box set that they put out a couple years ago. It's a double discer. What I really appreciate is, at least with the title, it kind of mirrors the Trick of the Tail, but it has, the first from the old school and then the new school. I probably wouldn't pick this one up if I'm being honest. I wouldn't recommend it. I picked it up because I thought this was going to be a really interesting kind of take. The second disc on here is all the Jonathan King sessions, which is essentially just from Genesis to Revelation. Like, they mixed a couple of the songs a little bit, but for the most part, it's the exact same thing. The first side of the first record is material from solo projects from the band, half of which are Anthony Phillips, which is fine. Like, I love Anthony Phillips. And then we have Watcher of the Sky from Steve Hackett, and a track from Johnny Warman featuring Peter Gabriel, Screaming Jets. Yeah, it's fine. And then the second one is all covers from different people. In Too Deep, Misunderstanding, Invisible Touch, Follow You, Follow Me, and that's all. So it leaves a lot to the imagination, and not in a good way. I would honestly stick with the archive box set, which kind of does the same thing that this thing tries to do, but better. Continuing on with some of the Christmas grabs I got. My partner got me the new Mars Volta record. I like this album a lot more than I think a lot of people do. I love how more like poppy and accessible it is. I love this thing. I think it's really great, and a great new iteration of the band, and I hope they continue on. I really do hope that they continue with this flavor. Very similarly how like A Perfect Circle did Eat the Elephant, and like they were a lot more slowed down compared to their past works, a lot more accessible, and it worked for them and it worked for the Mars Volta. Okay, continuing on with a Christmas get. I got the New Zealand Ardor record, which is their self-titled work, similarly to the Mars Volta self-titled stuff. Love this record. Probably their best work. I love how dark, how menacing, and how oomph it is. Just great stuff. As I mentioned, Zealand Ardor's best. If you want like black metal, black both in the expression, but also black in the culture, go and check it out. It is fantastic. All right, continuing on, we've got Wise Blood. This was one that I ordered just before the new year. Love this record. It is a brilliant and beautiful pop record. Kind of in the same vein that like Spelling was and St. Vincent was. I've been loving this. I'm still trying to find her 2019 release. But yeah, and In the Darkness, Hearts Aglow. Great record. The one that introduced me to her work. And again, continuing on with a Christmas get, I got Lana Del Rey's Paradise. I've been loving Lana Del Rey. My partner got me this for Christmas, and this is just another brilliant work from her second album. Really looking forward to her next album that she has got going on. Unfortunately, whatever mail carrier they used for this one really kind of bent the sides. Like, there, I'll show you. Like, it's real bad. It's real bad. But, I mean, it still sounds great, still sounds good. All right, and the final piece of all the Christmas gets that I got, I finally picked up Ghost Imperia. Not my favorite of theirs, if I'm being honest. It leaves a lot to the imagination. The first side of this record is a solid bunch of tracks. Kaiserion, Spillways, Call Me, Little Sunshine, Hunter's Moon, and my favorite track of Watch Her in the Sky. I love it, and I also love, some of the artwork, very Art Deco Gothic in that sense. It's just the second side that leaves a lot to the imagination. Like 20s is probably one of their not so great ones. And yeah, Darkness at the Heart of My Love, Driftwood, Bite of Passage. They're all probably like, they're B-sides for a reason, you know? Okay, now we're coming into a few records that I picked up more on a whim than anything else. Continuing the trend of good albums that came out last year, we have Always, their album of Blue Rev. Always is an indie pop group from Toronto, hometown, home represent, and their first two records were really good. I really enjoyed them, and this one continues that path. It's really good, like indie pop, dream pop, that kind of essence, and, it's just good, simple music. Another one that I kind of picked up a little bit on a whim is Floating Points, their first record. I always want to call it Alenia, but I'm probably mispronouncing it, and my whole COVID kind of thing with my voice probably doesn't do it very well in terms of pronunciation. But this is some really good experimental electronic music. So if you want some really good electronic experimental stuff, this is great, and I really like it. This is Floating Points' first album, I believe. Again, this was just an impulse buy for me. This is a Pallbearers album. I believe the group is called Pallbearer, and the album is called Heartless. So Heartless, a long play record by Pallbearer. I picked it up because it looked like some really good, like, black doom metal. Like, look at that. That's got to be some good black metal. And it's fine. It's real good. I don't know if I would have picked it up a second time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But if you want some really good doom metal, then I got your ticket right here. This boy right here. I'm going to try to pronounce it. I think it's Stygian Bow Volume 1. This is a conglomeration or a collaboration between the Bell Witch and the Aerial Ruin collaboration. Love this one. This is Volume 1. Really looking for Volume 2. And again, if you want some really, really good, like, doom metal, you can't go wrong with this. Love this stuff. I am slowly starting to get into groups and artists that I feel as though I really should, with my experience with music and my, prowess with music. I want to get into those artists that really made a name for themselves and really helped pioneer the genres. So I finally went ahead and I got the first 4 records from Black Sabbath. So I got their debut record right there. I got the big one, Paranoid. This one has a lot of the big staple tracks from them. My dad's favorite record from Black Sabbath, Masters of Reality. And then finally, Black Sabbath Volume 4. And it's real good stuff. Like, I always kind of knew Black Sabbath. I mean, everybody knows, War Pigs and Paranoid and Iron Man. But getting into some of the deeper cuts on these records has been a lot of fun and some really, really good stuff. You're really seeing like the genesis and the creation and pioneering of a lot of like metal subgenres on this. I mean, back then there was no such thing as metal. These guys were really creating it from the ground up. So subgenres of metal like doom, black, death metal, all those, you can really feel the DNA in there. And talking about pioneers of metal, let's talk about Liquid Tension Experiment. And I got their 3 records. There's 3. There's number 2. And number 1. So I finally broke down and got these 3. Tony Levin, John Bertucci, and Mike Portnoy and Jordan Rudess. All on here. Love these guys. Love these guys. Not much more to say about that. These guys really did push the boundaries at the time for what technical metal and progressive metal was, All right, let's see here. These next couple of ones are, as I mentioned, a little bit more impulse buy. This one I bought without knowing anything about it, and this is Fields of Wise. I think it might be Yes, but I think it's Wise. It's an original album celebrating field themes from the Wise series as universally acclaimed Falcon Sound Team JDK. And I originally picked this up thinking that it was going to be like a lot more soundscapey, a lot more like travel music, very, like impressionistic, and what I got was more like montage travel music, very upbeat, very get up and go, very energetic. Wasn't quite what I expected, but still, it was pretty good, and I just love the artwork on this. One that I already knew about, but again, was a complete impulse buy, and that's the record of the soundtrack for Sonic Spinball. I used to love this game when I was a kid. Now it's 45, so it goes by really quickly. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I love this game, and I love the soundtrack. It brings back some really good feels, and yeah, some just fun little things. Then finally we come to some really good soundtrack music. This is the soundtrack for, if you can't already guess, Cowboy Bebop, the original anime. And yeah, it's really, really great stuff. Everybody knows Tank, the big title track off this. But it's got some really good, experimental jazz. There we go. And when I was explaining the concept of the anime to my partner, she was like, oh yeah, let's put that on. I love Space Cowboys. I like that kind of Western techno stuff. So she was kind of expecting, I don't know, Vangelis meets spaghetti westerns. And what we got was some really interesting, 1960s jazz. So I love it, but she was a little taken back by it. So yeah, great stuff. And talking about 1960s jazz, let's talk about our boy Herbie Hancock. Finally, I'm slowly, collecting and getting a lot more of his work. This is his sextant stuff. This is some really good, experimental jazz stuff from the 60s and 70s. Yeah, this is 73. And this is just gorgeous. I love his experimental stuff. I love his more trippy and really psychedelic stuff. But for those of you that don't like the far out on Pluto kind of stuff, I do have also his more accessible stuff with Sunlight. Yeah, you get some really late 70s vibes on this one. I think this one was, 78. But look at all those. Look at those things. I saw that and I'm immediately, yes, I need it. And let's see here. The fold out, the little insert has what each of those items are. So, kind of like a Sgt. Pepper's thing on there. Love this one. You can see where the roots of bands like Daft Punk got a lot of their inspiration from Herbie Hancock and what he was doing with a lot of the electronic jazz stuff on this. Just absolutely phenomenal stuff. Turning to something completely different, let's go to Caravan. This is a live version of From the Land of Grey and Pink. And this is my first Caravan outfit, my first Caravan record. Yeah, this was, let's see here, the legendary performance, the Patriot Theater USA. I believe this was recorded back in 2002. And then finally released, first pressing 2002, the edition published by Codeine Publishing in 2017. So yeah, side 1, 9 Feet Under, side 2, For Richard, and If I Could Do It All Over Again, I'd Do It All Over You. So yeah, and it's also the Japanese pressing as well. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun. My first foray into some Canterbury scene, because unfortunately I don't really dive too deep into the Canterbury scene, and it's something that I'm trying to change, something I'm trying to revisit. All right, the next two, slowly starting to complete my collection. It is the first and last album, well, currently last, from the Black Midi. So we have Hellfire, the album they released last year, which is probably my favorite record from them. And I'm going to try to pronounce this, Schlegenheim, I think it is. It's a fake word that they created to sound a little German, and I love Black Midi. I'm loving what they're doing. Very rock in opposition, very avant-garde rock. Yeah, loving it. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Finally picked up Carly Rae Jepsen's Emotion. This is probably my favorite record from Carly Rae. Canadian pop idol, she's one of my favorite artists recording right now. Her last album was just fantastic, but this one probably still my favorite of hers. Side 1 is just banger after banger after banger. Run Away With Me, Emotion, I Really Like You, Give Me Love, All That, and Boy Problems. Just 6 solid pop tracks. But it's the first song off of the second side, Making the Most of the Night, that's still to this day my favorite Carly Rae track. So yeah, and apparently this is out of print. So I had to really dig deep to find this one. Okay, the final three. Here we go. Talking about completing collections. I'm finally getting some vinyl from the Flower Kings. This is one of my first, well, this was my first record and first album that I heard from the Flower Kings, Unfold the Future. And yeah, it's really interesting because this is the 2022 remaster and remixed. So they actually like remixed, and it sounds almost as though they re-recorded it. So last year they did everything up to this album, and I think this year they're going to do the rest of them. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. They moved some of the tracks around on the record. Obviously, The Truth Will Set You Free is put into 2 parts because it's like 30 minutes long. But I like where they cut to make that transition because it makes a lot more sense. They also put The Devil's Dance School at the end of side 2 rather than on like what would be the second disc. And it works really, really well. You know, it works really, really well. So great stuff. One of my favorite Flower Kings record. And another Flower Kings record that I love and I think is one of their best is Adam and Eve. This is the first one to be released this year. And this was also when Daniel Gilden Lowe, I believe he's right there, was officially in the band, the Flower Kings. This is the only album with him officially in the band. There's, you know, some pretty big things from all the boys. I think Daniel did a great job on this record, both lyrically, vocally, and guitar-wise. He adds a really good sense to the band. But unlike Unfold the Future, where I actually approve and like the fact that they move some of the tracks around, this one I'm not too excited about because I don't know if you can see here. Here, I'll hold it up for you. Love Supreme, obviously track 1, but then Cosmic Circus is track 2 off of the first side, which kind of splits up the Cosmic Circus Babylon kind of 1-2 punch because I feel like those are call and answer tracks. What they should have done was put as that last track, here we go, The Driver's Seat. The Driver's Seat is the only track on the last side of the whole album. So what they probably should have done was have Love Supreme just be the first side, go into the second side with Cosmic Circus, Babylon, Vampire's View, and Days Gone By, because each one of those are call and response tracks. Then have the third side be Adam and Eve, Starlight Man, and Timelines. And then the final side of this album be Blade of Cain and Driver's Seat. That's just me. But, you know, still a great record and one of my all-time favorites from the band. All right, the final one, the final record. We have a live album from one of my favorite bands of all time. It's the boys from King Crimson. This is their Live at Orpheum, I believe is how you pronounce it. It's a theater in LA. Part of the reason why I got this, I mean, outside of the fact that it's King Crimson and it's the kind of the later iteration of the band. Here, I'll open it up so you can see here. This was recorded back in 2014. So right when they were starting to do a lot of this like current iteration of the band. If you can believe it, this is almost 10 years old. But it's just the one disc, you know, it's not this massive big box set that they like to put out. It's not this overindulgent thing. As much as I love like Live in Chicago, Live in Mexico, Live in Toronto, that have like, if it's a CD, 2 or 3 discs, but if it's like a record, you're going on to like 5 or 6 discs. This is just one self-contained, own little piece, you know, Walk On, One More Red Nightmare, Banshee, Legs, Bell, Hassle, Construction of Light, The Letters on side 1, and side 2 is just Sailor's Tale and Starless. Yeah, I do wish that they kind of included, because Sailor's Tale kind of, I wish they had the first track from Island, because I feel like Island's that first 2 tracks, I always feel like it's kind of like one track, but anyway, great stuff, great stuff. And that's it. Those are all my records that I've picked up since Christmas. It's a good thing that for Lent this year, I'm not buying anything, but I do have one cheat day where I'm heading to Toronto, and my partner picked up a gift certificate for a couple record stores down there. So I'm going to allow myself that, but that's pretty much about it. I don't want to dive too deep into a lot more of their stuff. So Anyway, what was your favorite from the bunch? What was your most surprising album from the bunch? What have you picked up so far this year? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. And I think that's all I've got for you guys today. That's all I've got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.